Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Self-ish, when bubble baths, wine, and positive affirmations aren't cutting it, by Sunita Osborn Psyd, narrated by Emana Rachelle. Introduction. I type self-love into Twitter, and immediately the search bar proclaims 800 tweets in the last hour. Keep in mind, this was at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. That's a lot of people thinking about self-love on a midweek morning. As a psychologist, I'm instantly happy about this. Good for you, my virtual friends, I think. Out there thinking about what self-love means to you and finding ways to share it on Twitter. Let's see what you've come up with. As I start going through the stream of tweets under hashtag self-love, a few stand out. Crystals for self-love. Your self-love gotta be bigger than your desire to be loved. Self-love is revolutionary. Self-love necklace. Self-love over any type of love. A few immediate impressions filter through my mind. First, I'm struck by how much people are really feeling the "your self-love gotta be bigger" quote. We'll be back later with some thoughts on this. Second, what is a self-love necklace? Don't get me wrong. I love a good crystal as much as the next person. But I'm more than a little disturbed to notice a number of products for sale with the self-love tag. These tweets contribute to my overall concern and confusion as I continue to scroll. You may be wondering why in the hell a psychologist is consulting Twitter about self-love. Rest assured, social media is not my primary source for defining self-love. What I'm trying to explore is how people understand their relationship with self, a fundamental concept that I always invite into the therapeutic space. You see, I found that exploring and developing the relationship with self is one of the most helpful drivers of personal change. Clients asking questions such as, why do I keep finding myself in relationships that ultimately fail? Or, why am I constantly so hard on myself? Or, why do I feel so empty when I have everything I thought I ever wanted? Examining how they understand and express self-worth, self-trust, self-care, and other dimensions of the self-relationship, that is how we find answers, insights, and, ultimately, a pathway for meaning. Through these conversations, I have been fortunate to watch individuals reunite with parts of themselves that have been there all along, but have been neglected or overshadowed by pressures and demands. I have witnessed their grief in realizing the numerous ways they were neglected or unloved growing up, and how, thanks to that modeling and conditioning, they began to neglect and unlove themselves in seemingly innocuous but deeply impactful ways. I've also been witness to the joy and relief that comes from learning how we can create a relationship of unconditional love for all parts of ourselves, not just the pretty ones. A consistent sense of trust in ourselves to do the hard things, now and in the future, and a continual experience of care that goes beyond bubble baths and shopping trips to making difficult choices to prioritize our well-being. Defining the self-relationship. The self-relationship is a ubiquitous topic in psychotherapy and, much like the other relationships in our lives, contains many complex layers. It refers to the way we view and treat ourselves, from responding to our body's signals to acknowledging ourselves when we experience adversity or triumph. Given the years of history we have with ourselves, in which we developed opinions, feelings, safety, trust, love, or care for ourselves through countless influential experiences, the clearest parallel to the self-relationship is the long-term relationships in your life. Whether they be romantic or platonic, these kinds of relationships take continuous effort, reevaluation, conflict management, trust building, and showing up. The self-relationship also requires repair when you cause hurt or harm, as we all do from time to time. Even here, the same principles from other relationships apply. You acknowledge how much this relationship matters to you, how you plan to do things differently, and you put those beautiful promises into action. Despite this being the most central relationship in our lives, I've heard a lot of confusion from clients about the self relationship, ranging from a lack of awareness that these relational concepts even exist. Self trust is usually a, oh damn, that's a thing moment, to a realization that they don't even know what these concepts mean outside of the oversimplified version represented on social media. I've become increasingly concerned that our desire to share core psychological principles as like-worthy posts has compounded our collective confusion regarding the self-relationship. Thus, back to the search. Hoping to alleviate the concerns raised by Twitter, I type self-love into the Instagram search bar and am confronted with 76.4 million hits. All right, Instagram, I see you. But my confusion only deepens as I'm assaulted with colorful posts, reels, and memes proclaiming, treat him like a king and nothing less. Be positive. Don't be hard on yourself. Gaslighting signs with a list of behaviors and language to look out for. Today is a new day, so sprinkle a dash of self-love with a hint of smartass, and don't forget, a whole lot of badass. While I thoroughly enjoy the last sassy quote, I find myself thinking, how in the world do these ambiguous posts help people understand what self-love actually is? Now, you may think that we shouldn't be learning about self-love from social media platforms anyway. We should learn it from our parents, our role models, or maybe even our therapists. While I agree in theory, my experience as a psychologist gives me doubts. I've heard many clients describe parents who were incredibly supportive and loving toward their children, but seem to lack this same attunement to their own needs. When I ask clients how they saw their parents show self-love, practice self-care, or nurture their self-worth, I'm often greeted with blank stares. I may also hear, my family had no boundaries. Putting the needs of others above our own was praised, while focusing on yourself was considered selfish. Ah, the big bad word we all try our hardest to avoid. The word selfish has such a taboo attached to it. Odd, considering that selfishness is essentially just acknowledging you have a self to focus on. More on this later. Social media is a wonderful avenue for both information seeking and interpersonal connection. During the pandemic, social media allowed us to maintain and develop connection during a time we needed it badly. We've also seen the power of social media for supporting history-making movements as various platforms become hubs for deeply important and vulnerable storytelling. Of course, every good thing has its flip side. As much as social media can be the ultimate source for seeking, sharing, and distributing information, it can also be the ultimate source of misinformation and inaccuracy. This is particularly relevant when we think of key psychological concepts that carry so much potential impact for individuals' lives. The more these vital concepts are distilled into succinct, shareable posts, the more we risk losing their original meaning, or, worse yet, misunderstanding them altogether. Think of it as the world's most dangerous game of telephone, with each new post, based not on the true definition, but on a previous post, becoming more and more distant from the original meaning. Whether these core concepts have become so widely misunderstood through their social media saturation or through internalized beliefs from intergenerational patterns, we've drifted further and further away from a true understanding and felt experience of these concepts. Consequently, we are missing out on what embodying these concepts could do for our overall quality of life and sense of purpose and meaning. The why, the what, and the who. This book invites, reveals, and leads to greater understanding of the true and unfiltered domains of the self-relationship by utilizing psychological theory, academic research, clinical cases, and of course, a witty sense of humor. Together, we'll explore all the dimensions of the self-relationship in all its vital nuance, identifying origins, meanings, and actionable, sustainable ways you can embody each of these dimensions throughout your life. Let me say it again. This work is meant to be done throughout your life. Many resources out there offer pithy tips on how to improve your self-esteem, self-control, and self-discipline. Some of those tips are even offered in this book. though they may not be as short. However, best believe what they lack in brevity, they make up for in depth, because the kind of long-term impact I know we all want takes committed practice as we continue to grow. Because the relationship with the self is a long-term one, the insights and exercises in this book are not meant to be one and done, but rather listened to, considered, executed, and then executed over and over again until you've developed muscle memory that allows you to stop referencing this book, until you need a reminder, that is. I hope you will begin this book when you are moving through a huge life transition, whether ending a relationship, starting a new job, finding the you that has been neglected for years, or looking for a deeper awareness of self. It's also the book I hope you listen to when you feel like your life has everything you could have ever wanted. The great job, the great house, the great family, but you are still not feeling fulfilled. Now get ready to meet you. Self-love. Merriam-Webster Dictionary. An appreciation of one's own worth or virtue. Urban Dictionary. Being selfish, thinking about and doing stuff for yourself more and before other people, and doing what you love for yourself. Self-love is only good and acceptable when you've done everything you can for other people, that you have time to yourself, and you can do the things you love. APA Dictionary of Psychology. 1. Regard for an interest in one's own being or contentment. 2. Excessive self-regard or a narcissistic attitude towards one's body, abilities, or personality. Definitions may be paraphrased from sources noted. 1. Self-love. Why we start with self-love? There's a reason why my Twitter search started with self-love. And it's not only because the term auto-populated as soon as I typed the word self. Possessing love for yourself is the essential foundation for the hard, transformational, soul-deep work we are beginning together. Similar to the foundation of a house, the presence and stability of self-love is required to uphold the weight and stress the self-relationship, that is, the house, puts on it. Also, like the foundation of a house, self-love cannot be expected to stay in pristine condition for decades without proper maintenance. Unfortunately, we often neglect the maintenance of our self-love even worse than our home's foundation. Assuming it's a given, we pay little attention to developing, nurturing, or even checking in on it. However, Google search data suggests we still think about this concept often. Global internet search trends suggest that interest in the topic of self-love has many spikes throughout the year, with a noticeable peak around February, specifically around Valentine's Day. We can assume this has to do with 1. A holiday focused on love, forcing people to examine their relational choices, and 2. Media messaging that heavily pushes the narrative of how important it is to love yourself over everything. And here are some crystals to help you do just that. While I'm not expecting you to constantly descend into the crawl space of your psyche to assess the foundation of your self-love, okay, I promise the house analogy ends here. It is essential that you continue to maintain and reinforce your self-love so that it can evolve and grow with time. This is especially important as the complexity of developmental stages and life's challenges also evolve and grow with time. A solid foundation of self-love is what allows us to meet those challenges at our best. What self-love is and what self-love isn't. As previously discussed, there are many fun, engaging, and quite relatable social media posts out there on self-love. However, as with many of the concepts we will discuss in this book, just as many posts share distortions and misinformation on this topic. Even the American Psychological Association, the go-to resource for mental health professionals, seems to be divided in their understanding of this concept. Their first definition calls self-love a regard for and interest in one's own being or contentment, while their second meaning reads excessive self-regard or a narcissistic attitude towards one's body, abilities, or personality. Talk about confusing. One of the challenges in defining self-love is making the definition succinct. Self-love is a broad term that encompasses a way of being, thinking, and acting toward yourself. It includes internal acceptance of unpalatable thoughts and emotions, as well as actions that show warmth and unconditional regard for yourself, such as allowing yourself to cry without reproach after a hard-ass day. Another challenge in defining self-love is how easily it can be confused with self-indulgence, e.g., your friend's Instagram post that reads, "I bought this handbag because I deserve it. Hashtag self-love." Now, I'm all about some indulgence. My recent purchase of cowboy boots reflects this. However, self-love does not mean giving yourself whatever you want, when you want it. A parent does not show their child love through acquiescing to every single desire. Instead, she shows her love by responding to the child's needs and showing unconditional care. Even when her child throws down her sippy cup for the 18th time or screams bloody murder when mommy won't let her play with the Tylenol bottle. This parent may feel annoyed as hell when these things happen and respond with some type of consequence or behavioral redirection, but love and care remain at the core of her interactions with her child. She understands that this child isn't fucking with her just for fun, but rather is learning how to handle big emotions and experimenting with different methods to get what she wants. And guess what? Even when that child becomes an adult, she still will likely throw tantrums, make a mess, and probably have a host of equally embarrassing fuck-ups. At that point, her own self-love will guide her to respond with grace and compassion toward herself. Bottom line, self-love does not mean giving yourself a hall pass for bad behavior or catering to every pleasure-seeking desire you have. Instead, it means recognizing that in your humanity, you will do things you admire and feel deeply proud of, and have thoughts and commit actions that feel terrible to recall. Thus, self-love means consistently valuing who you are as a person. It means honoring your needs, acknowledging that you are figuring things out as you go, and recognizing that you have the capacity to continue growing each and every moment into the badass you are. Love yourself before others can love you. The greatest lie ever told. Now that we have a clear idea of what self-love is and isn't, let's get into one of the greatest lies ever told. That comment from Twitter sums it up. The one that was so well liked that it came up multiple times on my hashtag self-love search. Your self-love gotta be bigger than your desire to be loved. While self-love is certainly important, so important that I have a whole chapter dedicated to it, the dangerous part of this quote is its suggestion that we should quantify our self-love in comparison to the love we desire from others. In my clinical work, I have heard so many clients deprive themselves of the love and comfort of others based on the conviction that they need to be completely in love with themselves before they can be loved by another. I find this such a tragedy. We are not born with the capacity to love ourselves. It is through being loved, cared for, and made to feel safe that we develop the autonomy and ability to form a healthy self relationship, which includes self-love. In other words, our self-love comes about by allowing ourselves to be loved, seen, and valued by others. An additional note here. This doesn't mean all is lost if you haven't had people in your life who consistently gave you the love and care you deserve. It just means this is the conditioning to pay attention to as you work to make changes in your life. In case my soapboxing isn't enough to convince you, let's consult attachment theory. Developed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, attachment theory is the science of relationships that explores how we develop, maintain, and experience connection with others and ourselves. Attachment theory posits that we are born with an innate desire to connect with others and have secure attachment with them, meaning we feel safest when we are around our primary caregivers. We may feel distressed when they leave, feel happy upon their return, and seek them out for comfort and play. A fundamental aspect of developing a secure attachment is experiencing mostly consistent love, care, and acceptance from our primary caregivers. Receiving this type of care from others is how we develop and maintain our self-love. The mostly is emphasized because none of us will be able to respond to each other or ourselves with love, care, and attunement 100% of the time. Research assures us that we only need to respond this way 30% of the time to maintain a secure attachment. It's the quality, y'all, not the quantity. As an example, let me introduce you Cynthia, a well-spoken real estate agent I worked with for several years. She was all about the self-help world. She had read all the books, knew all the lingo, and was very much about ensuring that her cup was filled, a refrain she used frequently during therapy. Cynthia believed that part of filling her cup was not allowing herself to date, even though she did desire to be in a relationship, because she needed to truly love herself before she could be in a healthy relationship. I gently called BS on this line of thinking and helped her understand why being in relationships with others, whether romantic or platonic, would actually support the self-love she was trying so hard to cultivate. As humans, we are wired to be in relationships. We are herd creatures and need others around us in order to survive and thrive. While Cynthia was doing amazing work on her own, exploring different parts of herself and providing them with love and compassion, she needed to see that the love and care of others could be instrumental in showing all these parts of her that they had value. I pointed to our therapeutic relationship as an example of how another person's loving, caring presence had encouraged Cynthia's journey of developing self-love. We discussed how the important self-work she was doing would not end when she entered a relationship. Rather, the relationship would help it evolve. Cynthia did eventually begin dating and had many beautiful moments of connection, along with, of course, many challenging and painful moments of disconnection. The outcome of her romantic journey, while important, paled in comparison to the wealth of reinforcement, experience, and self-knowledge she received, enough to fill her cup to the brim. Why self-love can be challenging for women. I should be able to handle the responsibilities of having a job and taking care of my family. I shouldn't show I'm upset. They're going to think I'm weak or too emotional. If I can't have a baby, does that make me less of a woman? If I don't want a baby, does that make me less of a woman? I don't just have to perform as well as my male colleagues. I have to be better. Any of these thoughts sound familiar? As women, we are faced with a host of shoulds from day one. We are told we should be sweet, i.e., we need to take care of everyone else first. We should be pleasant. The acceptable emotions we can display are happiness, serenity, and calm, and maybe some fear too, because how endearing is that? And we should be able to do it all. We must perform at top capacity at work while also ensuring that our home life is cared for with the same level of ferocity that we show in that boardroom presentation. It doesn't help that the concept of womanhood is often synonymous with motherhood, which means being unable or unwilling to have a child is grounds for questioning one's identity as a woman. Taken together, these expectations create a conditional standard of love that is unique to women. As a result, our love for ourselves often becomes based on meeting these requirements. It's almost as if, based on all the messaging, implicit or explicit, we were and are exposed to, we decided on a pristine job description for being a woman. In my mind, it would go a little something like this. Job description, top duties and requirements. We are looking for an enthusiastic, agreeable, always pleasant woman to join our team. To be a successful woman, you should be able to assess the emotional needs of everyone around you and intuitively know how to respond, as per your training as a nurturer for every living thing around you. In addition, you should have a thriving career where you are beloved by all and not allow the very real systemic biases in your workplace to impact your success or likability. You should also have a beautiful home life with 1 to 2.5 children and a supportive partner. And you should ensure that even though you may have the same workload as your partner, you are doing at least 1.5 times as much household-related work as they do. If you don't have the same occupational workload as your partner, You must do 8.5 times as much household-related work as they do. To apply, please share your social media pages so we can assess how well you fit into these requirements. We can't wait to meet you, or not. Take a moment to imagine what other qualities or responsibilities or duties you would add to this job description. Perhaps certain physical qualities should be included, or additional personality traits women must have in order to be valued. The expectations we put on ourselves create a conditional sort of self-love. That is, we believe we are allowed self-love only when these conditions are met. As discussed previously, self-love is the foundation needed in order to take risks, make mistakes, and be generally human. Conditional self-love, on the other hand, causes uncertainty, anxiety, and shame, and can manifest into behavior such as perfectionism as we strive to reach and exceed each impossible expectation set for us. The conditions we create for self-love are not easy to abandon. They were cemented into our minds from years of conditioning, either explicit or implicit, from our families, our communities, and certainly social media. These conditions are reinforced well into our adulthood, across settings and contexts, making them nearly impossible to set aside. But while we cannot always rid ourselves of these ideas completely, we can choose to notice and learn from them. That feeling that you could truly love yourself if it weren't for those few little parts you wish you could get rid of, that's where self-love work really gets interesting. What's the hardest part of you to love? You have no bad parts. Yep, I said it. Take it in. Every single part of you was developed to fulfill a certain need. The creative part of you that helps you see and solve problems in a way that no one else can is the same part that helps you turn a mundane evening into an Uno tournament with side bets, standing ovations, and passionate team allegiances. But while it's easy to love the parts of you that help you be successful and bring praise from others, self-love also means valuing and nurturing the parts of you that are hardest to find compassion for. We all have a particular voice within us that is mean, critical, even downright hateful toward ourselves at times. In general, we call this the inner critic, though some people even give theirs a name. Karen is a popular choice these days. This inner critic is not only mean, but also indiscriminate with its timing. It shows up when we are stressed about that presentation at work, reminding you of all the times you fucked up in the past, taunting you with the memory of your coworker's killer presentation that had everyone talking for days after. It also shows up after you ace your presentation to caution you against getting full of yourself, then replays the tape on your performance so you can review and dissect every micro movement you made. So yeah, that inner critic gets around. Interestingly, the inner critic isn't nearly as polite or pleasant as it insists you should be. When the inner critic decides it is needed, it bulldozes past all the other parts of you to take the wheel and primary control of your immediate internal reactions and external behaviors. Some signs that may alert you when your inner critic is making its way into the driver's seat include physical signs: tightness in your chest, rapid breathing, sweaty palms, sweaty underarms, sweaty everything, digestive issues, headache, shaky voice, trembling body movements, mental signs, difficulty concentrating, racing thoughts, feeling caught up in your head or as if you have blinders on, debating with yourself, inner critic part likely debating with another part of you, negative perception of your abilities, capacities, and person. Hearing all this, you may be thinking, yes, exactly. This part of me is the absolute worst. Boo, inner critic. However, remember how we discussed that self-love isn't just loving the easy parts of yourself? It's loving every single part of you. Yes, even the inner critic. To begin changing your relationship with the parts of you that are hard to love, let's explore how they came to be. Stop shaming your inner critic. Internal family systems therapy posits that each of our parts, similar to members of a family, contain valuable and meaningful qualities that have the capacity to benefit the entire system if utilized well.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?